Speaker. During the many questions and debates on pensions for women, we've heard the facts, the figures and the dates about the 3.8 million women affected. So I'm not going to quote figures and I'm not going to talk about dates. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about a woman I met a few weeks ago who I'm going to refer to as Mary. Mary came to see me during a particularly wet and cold morning surgery, and when she arrived, she was visibly shaken and upset because she'd slipped over on the wet leaves walking into the room. And I offered to meet her at another time, but she was so insistent that she wanted to speak to me that morning, and she apologised for being late and explained that it was because she was so tired it was making her clumsy. I asked how I could help her, and she told me that she was currently on bereavement leave. Her son had died in July, and that despite support from work, her grief made it impossible for her to return to work in the local supermarket. She told me she was also acting as a carer for her husband, who had a degenerative condition. His health had declined to the point where he was unable to get out of his chair, and he needed constant care, which was why she didn't want to rearrange. But she was adamant she needed me to hear her story. She told me that she didn't find out that she'd have to work until 65 until 2013. She said the memory was vivid in her mind and that she'd been told by a work colleague. And she said she didn't believe it at first. She told her colleague, "You must have got this wrong," and went home and phoned the pension line and was in shock. And we know she's not the only one. The Department for Work and Pension failed to record how many letters were returned undelivered, and no further action was taken to trace women who had not received letters. You see, a few years previously, Mary's mother had become ill, and she had to make the choice. Either she went part-time at work and gave up her management position to care for her mum, or she continued to work and sorted carers for her. Mary had believed she only had a few years until she had a pension, so she made the decision to go part-time and care for her mum in the last few years of her life. Because of her decision to care for her mum and go part-time, her work pension is vastly reduced, and she's so broken by grief at the moment, she can't work. She's watching her husband decline, and she faces her retirement as a widow. Knowing that her pension was changing at an early date wouldn't have stopped what happened to her son or her husband or her mother, but it would have enabled her to have made an informed choice about whether to have continued in full-time employment or not, which could have resulted in her facing her retirement as a widow in a much more comfortable situation than the one she now faces. Millions of women across the country are living in financial difficulty because of the mismanagement of these changes, having made important life decisions in the expectation that they would receive their pension at the age of 60. Madam Deputy Speaker, I accept that even a Labour government can't change what happened to Mary. But I do strongly believe that it is the job of every government, no, a job of every person, to reach out a hand to help people back up when they've been knocked down by life. Now, this government can dress this up in any way they like, but we all know that there has been an injustice done to the 1950s women like Mary, and now they must right that wrong by introducing transitional arrangements for all the women affected.
Stephen Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam